Hello, this is Neil from iPaintGirls.com, and I'm going to continue on with the sexy approach to light and shadow. So we left off here, and I was going to actually go into more about how light works and stuff, but I figured let's just master this first. Once we master this concept here, that is one light source, we won't deal with reflected light. We won't deal with reflected light is kind of like bounce light. We won't deal with bounce light. We won't deal with cast shadows. Wrong color. We won't deal with cast shadows or anything like that. We're just going to deal with this first principle we just learned, and we're going to apply that to the figure. And then we'll learn about cast shadows since they're the next easiest, and then we'll learn about reflected light, and then we'll learn about a second light source. And so acting a second light source is actually pretty easy once you master the first light source. The hardest part to master, in all honesty, is this part right here, applying the first light source. So let's go back to this egg then, and let's say we want to add a light source to it. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to draw another layer here for a second. So let's go back to that simple light source we had here, and let's add it right here. So first we'll imagine the highlight, which will be hitting right here. We'll imagine the darkest part here. This is the line that will turn away from the dark. And I'm just going to shade all this in. I'm going to shade it in again to make it the darkest. Maybe one more time. I like doing this, adding layers, because I like having a certain touch to my. I'm going to then shade all this in the same color. I'm just working with lines since that's the easiest way in Photoshop. I like working with lines anyway. Like this kind of shading, I think is just cool in general, even with pencil. And then finally, I'm going to kind of add a little bit here, and I just want to shade that a little bit darker, not much. I'm just lightly touching my tablet right now, like so. Then I'm going to take white now, and I'll add in my brightest light, and I'll kind of radiate outwards just a little bit, like so. Okay, so that's the basic principle then. Then we'll go back to black here, and I want to make sure I add my darkest darks to be really dark. Right, so, and you can add, so that you can start seeing the 3D form as you continue to work on it and shade it like that. But that's the principle we want to master, right? Okay, so let's say the light source was coming straight from the side. Then you'd have your highlight right here. You'd only see part of the highlight, like it wouldn't be a full circle, and it would kind of radiate like that. So this right here would be the darkest dark. Let's just go ahead and I'm just going to try to fill that in. And then we'd kind of come in, and as you come in closer and closer, we would start to I really need to get my drivers back. I should just go look for my box. I know I have it. My Cintiq box is around here somewhere. I moved, and so a lot of stuff is misplaced. Now I like to just kind of add that light shadow, and then I like to come back in and add my brightest highlight. And so now it's like this, right? So we got to master this. Practice doing this with eggs, because that's probably the hardest. An egg shape or a sphere shape, but eggs even harder, is the hardest thing to imagine how everything works, where the brightest light's in the head. Just imagine. Remember, one of the easiest ways to imagine the 3D form is however you draw it from the planes area. Then you want to also add in your lines like that, and you could even add in a straight line here, and then as you radiate outwards in both directions, it radiates out like that. But adding that mesh sometimes helps you recognize a 3D form. Okay, so I think we've covered enough about that, and like I said, you're going to want to practice doing that before you start doing the figure. Make sure you can imagine the light source from anywhere, hitting the egg from any direction from behind it. Let's say you have the egg here, right? And now you want to have the light source coming behind it. Well, then it's going to be backlit. And let's say it's coming directly behind it, like it's directly behind it like that, but on the other side. So you'd have a rim light there and a rim light there. So basically, the easiest way to do this would be to just kind of shade the whole egg in, go ahead and shade it again. And it's actually going to be really, really dark since there's only that one light source. Say something like that, and then you might have the darkest darks and then kind of radiate outwards a little bit. I'm trying to do that really fast, and then I'm going to use white now. I know you can just hit X, but I'm not at the keyboard, so you'd have the rim lighting. And the easiest way to see that would be for me to actually add in like that. So now you can actually see the white, because before you weren't able to see the white. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of that. Right, so just kind of be like that. You just kind of have a little bit of rim light, and that's all you'd have on the egg. And then you might have a little bit. Anyway, we won't get into the reflect light and all that. We're just doing one light source right now. Right, so let's go ahead and get started. I know like people are like, man, come on, shade the damn figure already. But you know, all those, like I said, all those principles are important to know. So, all right, let's go ahead and start shading her. So then the first thing we want to do is, let's say the arm. Well, imagine the light source. Since that source is easy to do, we'll imagine a source like that. And so the highlights first, you want to imagine what those are going to be. You have a highlight there. You want to imagine each shape is its own shape. So this here is kind of an egg shape, sort of, you know, an egg that fits into her body. So only part of the egg is showing. The rest of the egg goes down into her body like that. And so we just have that top part of the egg showing, and you can kind of imagine it with the lines like that, the mesh, like I was telling you before. Right. So then you put the highlight on that shape. Now we know we have this other shape in here, and it's kind of like this. It's kind of a part of a sphere, because if we view it from the side, right, we know that most of it is inside the arm, so only part of it's sticking out and showing. That's the part that we're coloring, and then you can imagine a highlight, you know, hitting that part there, because it's going to be, you know, where the light source is. And then the furthest part of that shape, that's the furthest away from the light source, is going to be the darkest. Then you have this other light source here. You might just have a little bit of light hitting there, like that. You know, probably can just shade it all, though, make it easier, because it's just so far away from the light turning that way that, you know, probably not going to hit any light. Imagine this is one shape here. That's why you need to know anatomy. That's one shape there. So the light source furthest away. All this will be like a side plane away from the light. So all that can be in shade. You might have a little bit of the hand there that's going to be receiving some light. So that's kind of how you want to imagine it, right, before you start going. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to draw my shadow lines. So let's say I'm going to use a 3 brush here. Let's say I have a shadow here, and then it's like there, and then now the darkest darks is what I'm dealing with here. Let's go ahead and like kind of like comes up here, because that's all going to be kind of lit up, and then something like that, right? So that would be kind of like my line. Then I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to do, you know, kind of like it looks like it's smooth, but I'm really doing lines here. And I'm trying to pull the lines in just one direction towards me. So it, you know, might look like this is going back and forth, but I'm only pushing down when I come towards me. I think. I don't know. Maybe I might be pushing down a little bit as I'm going up. It takes practice to do this with a pencil, let alone with a Cintiq, or it doesn't matter whether it's Cintiq or a Intuos or something. Bamboo's gonna be a little bit harder than Cintiq. For right now, I'm just gonna imagine all that's in shade for right now. Now, then I can come in after I have all that in shade, is imagine, well, where would my next darkest darks be? You know, I might have a little bit of darks, you know, on that part right there, maybe a little bit more right in there where that pit is, and then I might have, you know, a little bit more darks here between the fingers and the pits of the fingers. Wherever things roll together, like you have these rolls like this, let's say these are spheres, then the darkest parts between those spheres are going to be here, as the light, no matter where the light source is coming from, that's going to be the darkest parts here. You'll have highlights, let's say, like that. So imagine the fingers, when you draw the fingers, imagine them as spheres, you know, being pushed together. And so the darkest parts are going to be between the lines, you know that. And then the furthest part away from the light source is going to be even darker. So all these fingers are turning down away, right? That part is like that's one plane, and then these planes are coming down, so they're all darker. And that plane is receiving a little bit more light than down there, but still it's in shade. And so as we continue going, you can see we're starting to add, a light source to. I'm going to add a little bit more actually right here. And so this is an easy way to do it, an easy way to think about it as you're approaching, adding a light source. This is a pretty bright light source too, and I'm not going to. I could, sometimes depending on, you might want to add a little bit of shade on the other side as well, because that part is going to receive a little bit of shadow depending on. But I'm doing more of a cartoony style, so anyway, that's that. I guess I'll have to come back with part 3 to finish shading her. Probably maybe I'll just do a few parts. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please rate, put thumbs up.